Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Prong, State of Emergency, out October 6 on Steam Hammer SPV. The album has 11 tracks, 41 minutes in length, and this is the band's 13th full-length studio album. They are an American heavy metal band. And for this record, they went with a design that just feels right. It's not complicated, it's actually pretty simplified. It's just about putting the right songs in the right order. I know this sounds easy, it's not always the case, but this album really makes it feel that way. You just get different tracks, different experience. It's an ebb and flow that never stops from the first to the last, making the record dynamic, making the record engaging, allowing you to enjoy the experience of listening to the album and really go from first to last without even blinking. This is the best way to get the most out of the individual songs, but also add character and experience to what the overall record is all about. Now, as far as the sound and overall sound experience, this record follows the pattern of the band. The DNA of the band is alive and well in this album. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel after 12 records. So you have the three common denominators that I always look forward in any Prong album. Great guitar sound, impactful bass, and those traditional vocals, and the approach, the delivery. This record has all of those three pillars in order to be what I would consider your prototypical Prong album. Now, when you look at the sound of this record, first you're going to feel the guitars, second you're going to feel the bass. The two work really well, hand in hand, feeding one off of the other in order to create that DNA sound, that DNA approach that you're going to find having an impact on all 11 songs. It still stays true 13 records later, and this is important. But it's also important to understand that that does not define what each and every single track is going to be all about. This is not a repetitive record. This band has always been able to use that DNA sound experience, that guitar sound, that bass approach, having the bass really pop, coming in, playing an impactful role, a driven role in the sound, and not necessarily making songs that blend with one another. This record has that ability to change the routines, change the structures, adding solos that change the approach, adding the structure of the songs, adding certain caveats within tracks that allow you to keep the uniquenesses, the DNA of the band, the soundscape of the band alive and well across 11 songs, but not necessarily making 11 songs that are pure photocopies of one another. That bass sound to me is one of those elements that moves around in the mix, it moves around in the construction of the song, stays similar in terms of the output, in terms of the sound output, but it changes in terms of where it's going to be impactful and when it's going to tie it up with the guitars and when it's going to separate itself. Really interesting approach on this record. Once again, going back to the roots a little bit from that point of view, simplifying the details and making sure that it's noticeable, making sure that it's there so that you feel that Prong sound coming through. The guitars on this album sound magnificent. I honestly really enjoy the thickness of the riffs, the impact of the riffs, and then you see the departure from that sound, from that experience going into the solos. Really bright, really energetic, sometimes heavy, sometimes a little bit lighter, depending on the mood of the track, depending on the construction of the song. The solo came in order to complement that experience, but this record has great guitar solos across each and every single track. You always feel like that solo is coming, but when it hits you, it still surprises you with the energy and the atmosphere that it brings. So great guitar work from start to end. As far as the drums are concerned, I honestly felt like the drums on this record filled in the gaps. The guitars and bass are very close together. They feel sometimes that like they're just one. So it's important for the drums not just to fill in the gaps, but also to expand what the sound is and make the tracks a little bit wider. Not stretching them or overstretching the sound because you want the experience to be very compact. That guitar and that bass working together creates that sense of a more robust, compact sound experience, but you want the drums to come in, stretch that a little bit in order for the tracks to have a little bit of a bigger size or to have more width. And that's exactly what the drums are doing on this record consistently from beginning all the way to the end. I enjoy the execution, I enjoy the delivery, and I enjoy the warmth that they added to a very unique experience, as you could say about any Prong record. Now, as far as the vocals are concerned, I think this is another traditional element of the band, and Tommy definitely gives you a vintage performance. I don't know exactly what he does as far as his voice is concerned, but he sounds as good now as he did in the 80s. Absolutely phenomenal performance. He has a great voice. He has a great delivery. It's part of what this band is all about. It's part of the DNA of the band. And on this record, he brings in that vintage Prong vocal delivery to match that diversity of sound that somehow still feels connected to the main spinal cord of what the band has always been. So great, consistent vocal performance. All around, this is a great Prong album. It keeps you connected. It's an album that gives you a little bit of a synopsis of what this band has been across 12 previous records. It feels almost at times a little bit like a greatest hits. It has moments or has songs that have different moments of their history, but at the same time it feels like a rejuvenated record. So it's a record that pays homage to the past while always looking forward into the future. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with State of Emergency. Thick guitar sound with great bass behind it. It's that Prong DNA coming to life on the title track of this album. The guitars take a little bit more of center stage. They have that thick volume that moves really well and allows the track to have this sense of expanding and contracting. The guitars do that really well, tied in with the bass coming together in order to really have that lateral movement, which makes the song feel at times a little bit methodic, but the vocals stay connected with that movement and they always go hand in hand with it. The solo section really hits the mark, very heavy but also very explosive at the exact same time. It allows to infuse some energy into a track that at times moves, like I said, very methodically. It's a complete track. It's a track that has all the right ingredients and it's a perfect title track. Next we have Light Turns Black, a very hardcore sounding song. When I looked at this track, there are moments in this song where you feel like that New York hardcore scene coming through. It has great guitars from the opening all the way to the end. The chorus is where that hardcore vibe comes into the forefront. It has all those elements. I would say live elements, feels a little bit more raw. You feel that in the guitars, you feel that in the drums, you feel that in the overall sound, you feel that in the vocals. The verses feels a little bit more traditional prog. The Prong DNA sound comes a little bit more natural, if you will, in the verses, than pushing the envelope more into that hardcore sound in the chorus, closing off with slam dancing routine, if you will, sound-wise, a conglomerate of what you get out of both parts of the track, out of the verses, out of the chorus, coming together in that slam sound that really brings everybody to the pit. It is a song that has a lot of live elements in it. You see them more definitely towards the closing, you see them more in the chorus, but it's a track that definitely has a live ambiance to it in terms of how it's constructed and in terms of how it comes across. Last but definitely not least, Working Man. This is a very unique track. It comes at the end of the album. It's the slower song on the record. It has a more methodic, slower, groovier sound to it. There's a little bit of a simplicity in the chorus that brings in a very stoner, sludgy vibe. It's a track that really sets itself apart from the entire album. It sets itself apart from how it sounds, how it moves, how the vocals come across, the construction of the track, and then even how it ends. It ends exactly the same way you would end a song in a live setting, or the way you would end a song as far as closing off your set. It has that sense of finality to it, and it closes off the album. I couldn't think of a better song to close off a record than this track. Because of its uniqueness, because of its DNA, because of its characteristics, not just of how it progresses from beginning to end, but how it closes. You cannot put this track anywhere else, otherwise it's a false end. And then you would need an encore afterwards. It would not work. This song fits the record perfectly. It comes at the end. It's the curtain coming down. It's the end of the show. It's the end of the record. It sounds like that. It feels like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is a song that live has a very similar feel to it. I don't think they were going to put this song at the end of their set, but it has that sort of vibe. It has that sort of atmosphere. And down the line, it could definitely work that way. This is it, Prong with State of Emergency on October 6th on Steam Hammer SPV. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.